Graham, I know we're talking about Ethan and the internship and the whole process of getting started. One thing I can't say I know for sure that I can make money if I had to bet on it. How was your start? How did you navigate? How did you work your way to be the person that a coach like Tom Izzo, who I've seen gives you a great amount of respect, and you guys have a healthy exchange. You had that with all the football coaches that we've seen. But how did you go from being a local guy in the area to getting to this point right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, so I'm 44 now, so I graduated in '97 from Lansing Sexton, and you know I went to Lansing Community College for a couple of years. I got into media there, covered Lansing Community College men's and women's basketball for the Lookout student newspaper, and did their games on the radio. If you want to hear some really bad play-by-play from like 1998, there are tapes that are out there still.
Tapes, huh?
Yeah, but you know, went to Columbia College in Chicago. Wanted to get out of the city, or get out of where I grew up, I should say, and try something new. And then worked in Illinois for a while, and then in Kalamazoo for a lot of years before I came back here about 12 years ago. And this was a bucket list job for me, though, because I grew up reading the Lansing State Journal, and I grew up, you know, this is my town, and I was, you know, wanted to be away for a while. I was away for 14 years, but I had an eye on this sort of role, you know, being a columnist, and you know, where your opinions are valued, and you get to, you know, you have a platform, and people respect you, and you have a chance to make a difference, not only in sports. Like during COVID, especially, I really got to step outside of the athletic range, and I've done more of that since. I still want to do more of that because I think there's a lot of issues to tackle, and this community is one I care about. But yeah, it was a pretty traditional route. Small newspaper in Freeport, Illinois. A little bit bigger paper covering a college beat in Kalamazoo for a while. And then I worked at them live for a little bit, and then came to the Lansing State Journal and sort of, you know, cut my teeth covering college sports until I got this opportunity. And you find your voice, and you know, you get better and better at that over time. And it's like anything, when the opportunity is there, just trying to be ready for it.
Yeah. Do you feel, and Ethan, I'll be ready for you to follow up too, do you feel you have to defend media, especially in this day of digital media, where consumers can respond with a tweet or with the IG or a note, where you find yourself kind of going back and forth more than you may have done in the past?
I love that accountability. Well, if I'm going to have a cranky opinion about something and I don't want anybody to respond to it, like, again, it's the whole thing. If you don't make it personal, I have no problem with anybody disagreeing with me or coming at me a little bit. I don't block people on Twitter. I mute some people if it gets too crass and crude or whatever. But I've also got thick skin. I don't mind the exchange.
You get to the grocery store at times?
Oh yeah, I don't.
You're not getting stopped in the aisle with oranges out saying, "Man, no." About this.
And that's, you know, one of the things Couch and the Rube has done. That podcast is it allowed.
Shout out to Rube.
It's allowed people to get to know me different personally. And that's been the best thing that's ever happened. And because before you are a person they may meet once, or you may come across, but now you're somebody who we do Twitter questions and hot takes and with listeners and everything, and they'll be able to ask you something directly and hear you respond. They get to know who you are and what you really care about.
We had a great showing at Midtown Brewing Company. I came down the other day.
It was fun.
Yeah, folks, as far as what, Marquette coming in?
Marquette, yeah, Grand Rapids, Mattawan. It was good. It was great.
That was great. Ethan, you got any thoughts for the ground?
Yeah, you know, talk about the time and effort behind the scenes that goes into your job that people don't really get to see or understand.
Sure. I mean, that is the. It's a great job. I don't want anybody to not think it is. It's a wonderful job. But I'll give an example. Just, you know, like a Michigan State basketball game on the road. You know, the whole game I'm writing these quick takes and reshaping them as the game's changing and everything to try to have them done within 5 or 10 minutes. So it's a stressful. The game itself is a stressful experience, and then you have to reset a lot and figure out what's your other column you're going to write, and then go to, and so it's a, you know, quick process, and then you know, it's sometimes, you know, 3 to 5 hours after the game, you know, sometimes all night working on a piece. So there are parts of it that there are a lot of nights a lot of mornings my wife gets up and I'm still awake when it's a night game, finishing up what we're doing to get it up. So there's that side of things.
And the travel, people, that's an underrated part of your job. So it's a lot of moving around.
The travel I enjoy for the most part, but yeah, there's a fair bit of travel.
You're not sightseeing too much when you get there, are you?
No, it depends. I mean, there's some cool trips though. You know, MSU basketball played in Germany. I got to do that. You know, they play in Hawaii once in a while. The football teams play in some cool places. I'm never going to complain about the travel, and you can always find ways to make that. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into developing relationships and being at things and showing up and being someplace after you've written a critical column. I think that's the most important thing, is if you write something that you're there the next day, you show up. That's
and be ready.
And just I think people respect that, and so that's a real important part. But a lot of it is, there's a lot of time alone in the room writing. There's a lot of time coming up with ideas. There's a lot of phone calls. There are a lot of interviews and transcribe. The thing I hate most about the job, and I think if I had known about it going in, I would not have gotten into the business, is transcribing. You might do like an hour interview, and you got to go back through it. And
the technology helps, doesn't it?
A little bit. You still got to go through it.
Yeah,
you can't trust. You want to make sure you have the quotes right. You can't trust what like Otter. You have to still go through it with it. It's easier to find it, but it's not. It's still.
So let me pose this question. And that was a great question, by the way, Ethan.
Appreciate it.
Get to share time with you in the media corps, as you know, with SBS. I'm based on mental toughness and mental health. And fortunately, over the time with Tom, and particularly Coach Izzo, my questions have always been about that. And we've had that kind of exchange, fiery or not. But how is it for you when on its face you can see the team is having trouble, you write about it, you pose a question about it, and you know there's a chance you might have to go up against a coach like Tom Izzo? What is that like for you?
So I'm trying to remember the first time, but I mean, one of the great things about covering Izzo is when he's mad at you.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
he calls you or whatever, and there are times where I write a column and I'll just almost put it on 3, 2, yep, here it comes, and you just know. And so, but you have it out, and the next day you're
direct right then when he's calling, or is it?
Oh yeah, they'll tell you
anything.
Yeah. I mean, there are funny ones too, because sometimes he hasn't even read it. He's just mad at the headline.
Oh.
And I remember one time specifically, he called me, and it was during the pandemic still, and it was the game. A game was against Michigan, was about to get canceled, but they're already down in Ann Arbor. Okay. So this is like, maybe the night before a game. I forget all the circumstances. He's on the phone with me, and I can hear things going on in the background, and he's angry about something I wrote. And I can tell he hasn't read it. Because there's no reason to be angry. There are ones I know he's going to be upset with. I'm like, Tom, have you read the piece? He's like, well, no. My assistant's told me, I will go read the piece. He's like, all right. And then he never called back, and I knew. What's good about that, though, is the next day everything's good. Mm-hmm. There are other coaches I've covered where things like Mark D'Antonio, things would fester sometimes.
Oh.
And
so you say, where is this coming from?
You could just tell he was disappointed, upset, and I would much rather have somebody who just calls you and you have it out, and that's it. But that's, everybody has their own way of doing things.
Well, maybe Ethan can give you some insight into his new coach, Jonathan Smith, and how he's going to be. You got any insight to give Graham on how to read him, or what does it go? Because he seems to be a nice forward-facing guy, but we don't know how he's going to deal with the media.
Yeah, I haven't talked too much to Coach Smith, but he seems like a real nice guy. He seems like he wants to talk to the media, like he doesn't have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Make that connection.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to know him.
Well, listen, man, we appreciate having you. We want to give you a chance to talk about some of the other things that you're working on. We know you have your podcast with Spotlight Media. Is there anything you want to share that we can be on the lookout for you, so we can keep supporting you and what you have going on?
No, I mean, the big, Couching the Roof podcast is something, that we do 2-3 days a week.
Okay.
And we have a lot of fun with.
How can people connect with that?
Anywhere you download your podcast. You can find it on YouTube. Well, we do it. It's live on video as well. And anywhere you download a podcast, Couching the Roof. And then the Michigan State, coverage at the Lansing State Journal. There's going to be, obviously, March is a fun time.
Sure.
And now that hockey's good, but it's men's and women's basketball, hockey, a lot of really important games, a lot of fun travel. And so those are all things we'll be covering in over the next month.
Yeah, I'll see you Sunday for the Ohio State game.
Look forward to it.
From there. Ethan, you got anything else? Mr. Birthday Boy?
Just one last question. What are some tips or advice that you have for athletes that want to work in the media?
Very good.
Or even just like getting interviewed by the media?
Yeah, if you want to work, I mean, obviously it depends what you want to do. There are lots of different, but I would say get as much experience as you can. Find out what you don't want to do. Find out what you like and what you don't like. I was a broadcast major, for example, and I thought for a while I wanted to be on air, and I still enjoy that component of it. And but realized I liked a lot of behind the scenes stuff too. I wanted to write more, and that was my avenue to get into the behind the camera and microphone stuff. But it's internships. It's like anything. It's and then when you get anywhere, be willing to grind.
How are you defining the grind?
Well, I'll give you an example. Because especially with athletes, some people will assume they just, there will be a misconception that they don't want to grind, right? They want, and that is a completely unfair thing. And But I had an internship, for example, with the CBS 2 investigative unit in Chicago as a senior in college for Pam Zeckman, and she was like a legendary investigative journalist. She had been in the movie The Fugitive and things like that. And I learned a lot. I learned how to read court cases really quickly. I learned how to make a good investigative piece. A lot of fun stuff. Chasing the loafing city workers around town in a van. It was great. And she loved me. We had a great relationship because I worked hard. It was an unpaid internship, which I understand also not everybody can do. But it was, they saw that grind. And 2 jobs later, when I got the job in Kalamazoo, 3 years after that, 25 years old, they had a new managing editor, and she was one of my references. And, with managing editors, and there's sports guys have there's sometimes a knack that we're not that bright. Sometimes we're not. But he called her, and she sold me so well that I think it was, among all my references and all my work, I think it was that reference 3 years later from somebody he respected. And so it's creating connections with people who will respect you, grinding when you get the opportunity, learning what you like and what you don't like, and then not being afraid to just, try things and fail. I made big mistakes early on in Freeport, Illinois, and everybody does, but did it in a small town, and not that town didn't matter, but you're going to make mistakes at 22, 23 years old. You're going to make mistakes in college. I still make mistakes now, but being willing to sort of put yourself out there and work at it and ask questions and just take advantage of every opportunity that's there. And then in terms of being interviewed, I think it's the more you give of yourself, like, you have to decide what you want to be willing to share, because not everyone wants all their business out there. But if you have a story that you really want to tell, or you really want told, make sure there's a hint of that, even if it's something you don't think is in that setting. It can be post-game or something, and all the questions are about, a third down, and it's not really about that. But if you start to get comfortable with a reporter, you can reach out to a reporter and say, hey, this is, I got a story, I'd like to tell if you're interested, and things like that. And I think that is, but just knowing what you're willing to say, be clear in what you want to say. And the other thing most reporters are not jerks. Especially if you're in a one-on-one setting, you say something you didn't mean to say, or it comes out wrong. To say, that's not how I meant it. Can we redo that? And most people are willing to
have the journalistic integrity to correct that. Yeah. Well, that was a great question, giving some great insight. Graham, I appreciate you, man. We want to take advantage of having you here, but also not take too much advantage of your time. Thanks so much.
Oh, anytime. Happy to do it. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah, thanks for having me.
And with that being said, this is Lindsey House with SBS, and signing off, and see you guys next time. Peace.